I thought I had a happy marriage, but then hints of trouble emerged. At the office party, I overheard co-workers referring to work spouses. Then Sandra mentioned working late with her colleague, Martin. Suspicious, I began observing from my car during lunch breaks. I witnessed co-workers routinely crossing the street to the hotel together. I hired a private investigator who showed me shocking video proof. My wife, Sandra, was having an affair with Martin in that very hotel. My world came crashing down. I knew I needed revenge on all who betrayed me. Now it's time to hear how I planned the ultimate payback. Stick around to find out what happened when their secret lives were exposed for all to see. This story of deception will keep you gripped as I reveal how I got my payback. My name is Lester Anderson, and a year has passed since my world crumbled into countless irreparable fragments. It would be inaccurate to simply say it exploded. I played a significant part in its downfall. I orchestrated its demise and then left amidst the chaos with the help of around 60 accomplices who were complicit in the deceit. Unfortunately, my wife was among those collaborators, and there was a twisted satisfaction in witnessing them all fall alongside her. Prior to this monumental shift in my life, I was blissfully ignorant, a happy husband deeply in love with his wife, enjoying the bliss of our shared life. Our 5-year marriage felt like a dream, with a cozy home, dear friends and neighbors, fulfilling careers and supportive families. We were financially stable and building a future together. However, that future took an unexpected turn. I wish I could provide some reasoning, a logical thread to untangle the mystery of our relationship, but even I am unable to grasp the truth. She was my college sweetheart, kind, funny, and affectionate. She never showed any signs of infidelity, never flirted with other men, or dressed provocatively. I never doubted her loyalty. I work in a research and engineering lab that specializes in cutting-edge electronics for esteemed clients like NASA and the military. We fondly call it Geek Central. The intriguing aspect about U.S. geeks is that while we excel in the complexity of our professional lives, we keep things refreshingly simple. At home, what you see is what you get. There's no elaborate facade because, frankly, we're not adept at deception. Some may perceive our behavior as somewhat juvenile, and perhaps by conventional standards it could be viewed that way. We find delight in cheesy jokes, enjoy quoting obscure movies and literature, and have a knack for delving into intricate details. Despite any semblance of sophistication we may possess, we don't excel in social finesse. However, our unwavering dedication to truth is a core value we cherish. Honesty is not merely a quality in our realm, it serves as the foundation of our reputations and, consequently, our livelihoods. We, as geeks, do not deceive. We recognize the utmost importance of our credibility, both in personal and professional spheres. My spouse, Sandra, is employed in the realm of high finance at a company known as Wilson Wilson, a significant player in funding large-scale construction projects throughout the Mid-Atlantic region. Despite their considerable influence in the field, I have observed that many of Sandra's colleagues do not possess the academic background I would anticipate. While they exhibit a strong understanding of financial matters and excel in spreadsheet programming, I often feel out of place when engaging in conversations with them, reminiscent of my high school days. A specific incident involving the naming of our 2 kittens, Oscar and Nat, underscored this disparity. One of Sandra's co-workers suggested that we should select names of more prominent figures, highlighting the contrast in our viewpoints. In their world, it appears that status and conformity hold the highest value, making me feel like an outsider. Sandra and her co-workers are skilled at navigating the intricate financial networks, where every detail is meticulously recorded, and personal ambition frequently takes precedence over individual integrity. The discomfort I initially experienced among Sandra's colleagues intensified during the office Christmas celebration at the nearby Marriott Hotel. Amidst the freely flowing alcohol and mingling crowds, distinguishing between employees and spouses became increasingly challenging. Overhearing a woman casually refer to her work husband served as a stark reminder of the prevailing collective mindset in Sandra's professional circle, where alliances are forged for personal benefit and loyalty is often fleeting. While I did not harbor any ill will towards them initially, occurrences such as these gradually eroded any remnants of goodwill I once held. It was an unexpected comment that left me unsettled. My initial impulse was to swiftly turn around and identify the speaker, but a sudden desire to remain inconspicuous overcame me. Cease, listen, refrain from reacting, mingle into the background, a voice in my mind urged. We'll all have the next week off, but I suppose we'll manage without crossing the street, one of the women quipped, prompting laughter from both. You could always conjure up a minor account emergency, another chimed in, eliciting even heartier laughter. What did they mean by crossing the street? Were they insinuating that they would need to return to work during the Christmas party festivities? The enigmatic conversation troubled me, stirring a sense of unease. Despite my discomfort, I reassured myself that I made the correct decision in marrying Sandra. Whatever they are implying, it cannot be favorable. With that, I pushed the disquieting thoughts aside and rejoined the merriment. For the subsequent 3 weeks. However, the incident slipped from my mind. On a Friday evening, as I ascended the carpeted stairs from our basement, I overheard Sandra's voice from upstairs. All right, I'll take care of it. What's a wife for, after all? She chuckled. Wife? What is that supposed to mean? I wondered aloud, turning the corner just in time to see Sandra hanging up the phone. What was that all about? I inquired, striving to maintain an accusatory-free tone. She visibly startled as I approached. Oh, that was Martin Harris. It's work-related. I need to head into the office tomorrow and we'll have some late nights next week. There's an opportunity to assemble a funding package for a new apartment complex they're planning on J Street, Sandra explained. The memory of the enigmatic conversation from the Christmas party resurfaced in my mind. Sounds like a minor account emergency, I remarked. Sandra chuckled. I wouldn't exactly call it an emergency, but it's an opportunity we can't afford to miss. I couldn't help but express my disappointment. We've both been putting in long hours this year. I was hoping we could take it easy this month and spend more time together. Darling, please don't be disheartened. These opportunities are rare occurrences. You must seize them while you can or they slip away, Sandra reassured me. I promise I will make it up to you. I was taken aback by her mention of a wife. What's with the talk about a wife? I thought you were my only wife. How many husbands do you have? I joked, trying to inject some humor into the conversation. A flicker of surprise crossed Sandra's face as she realized I had overheard her. She attempted to conceal it with a smile and reassured me. Just you, silly. It's something we say at the office. We joke about seeing more of our work partners than our actual partners at home. It's just a little office humor. Everyone says it. Despite her attempt to reassure me, her trembling hands betrayed her underlying unease. I will only go to the office for a few hours tomorrow to kickstart things, and then we will have the rest of the weekend together, she promised, her smile strained. The remainder of Friday night passed quietly, and Sandra left for the office on Saturday morning as if it were any other workday, dressed casually. However, our promised weekend together did not begin until after 7 p.m. on Saturday night. Now, please do not misunderstand me. I appreciate hard work and the importance of meeting deadlines. However, what troubled me was the sense of secrecy that permeated our marriage. I couldn't shake the feeling that there was far more secrecy in our relationship than I had ever suspected. As I waited for Sandra to return home on that Saturday, my thoughts revolved around this newfound realization. Despite regularly sharing stories from my work and recounting anecdotes I had heard, I suddenly became acutely aware that Sandra never disclosed anything about her own job. It dawned on me that she had erected a significant barrier between her work life and our home life, a divide I had never truly comprehended before. When my wife finally arrived home on Saturday night, she went straight to the shower while I began grilling some steaks. In spite of my efforts to concentrate on cooking, my mind remained fixated on that unsettling spouse or mark. Even if it was intended innocently, it bothered me, leaving me feeling annoyed. 2 phrases from the Christmas party continued to replay in my mind like a broken record. One was work spouse, and the other was crossing the street. I couldn't shake the nagging question of whether these phrases held literal or figurative meaning. Considering Sandra's office location, I couldn't help but contemplate the possibilities. Across the street were 2 prominent buildings, the first being a sizable medical practice and the other being the Marriott Hotel. It occurred to me that many individuals at the Christmas party seemed intimately familiar with the layout of the hotel, sparking a flurry of unsettling thoughts. While I tried to justify their frequent visits as business-related lunches or client accommodations, my sour mood led my imagination down darker paths. That week, feeling an overwhelming need for a break from the lab, I made a deliberate choice to have my lunch in the solitude of my car. As fate would have it, my parking spot happened to be conveniently located just a block away from my wife's workplace, giving me a clear view of the street stretching between her office and the Marriott. What unfolded before me left a bitter taste in my mouth. Around 11:45 on Monday morning, just before the lunch hour, I witnessed several couples strolling across the street and disappearing into the Marriott. By 12:30, the same couples leisurely made their way back to their respective offices, not a single group of 3 or 4, only pairs. Although I didn't catch sight of my wife among them, my unease only grew stronger. The following day presented a similar sight. Different couples, but the same suspicious behavior. I entertained the idea of further investigation by observing the hotel lobby. However, the risk of being recognized, particularly by Sandra, discouraged me. Out of sheer desperation, I made a decision that caught me off guard that very afternoon. I sought the help of a private investigator named Tristan Howard. After informing him of what I had seen and expressing my urgent need for answers, I handed him a photo of Sandra. His advice was both confusing and unsettling. He advised me not to dwell on it, to go back to my normal routine, and to trust that if there was something to be discovered, it would come to light soon enough. Despite my hopes that my suspicions were unfounded, I went back to work, struggling with a mix of emotions. My investment in Tristan's services paid off. On Thursday morning, he sat me down in his office and revealed the harsh truth. On Wednesday morning at precisely 11:45, my worst fears were confirmed. My wife walked into the Marriott lobby with Martin Harris, his arm around her waist. After a brief stop at the reception desk to get a key, they went up to the 4th floor and didn't come out until close to 12:40. Tristan, with his talent for discreetly gathering information, had a private conversation with the desk clerk, uncovering a disheartening reality. My wife and her supposed work husband were regular guests at the hotel. This revelation came at a cost of $300, just a down payment, according to Tristan, who warned me that obtaining undeniable evidence would require more money. Despite my inner turmoil and self-disgust for entertaining such suspicions, I made up my mind to seek solid proof, even if it meant exploring the darkest corners of my mind. To achieve this, Tristan suggested a plan involving cooperation from the desk clerk and strategic room rentals. He would find out the room my wife and her colleague would use during their next visit, renting the neighboring rooms to set up discreet video surveillance. It would involve additional costs, including a bribe, but I was ready to pay whatever it took to uncover the truth. The past week had been incredibly agonizing. I made every effort to distance myself from Sandra, but she couldn't help but notice my erratic behavior. I brushed off her inquiries with vague references to work, but I doubted she believed my weak excuses. Despite my attempts to appear normal, my heartache was evident. When Sandra expressed a desire for intimacy, I reluctantly agreed, convincing myself that if I hadn't found any concrete evidence yet, there might be nothing to discover. However, as we made love, a mix of anger and anguish weighed heavily on my heart. It felt like my marriage was falling apart right in front of me, yet I had no solid proof or a reasonable explanation for my suspicions. Tristan's call from the clerk only confirmed my worst fears. He had booked a room for the following Wednesday morning and evening, and on Thursday morning, I found myself sitting in his office, clutching the evidence that shattered my world. Watching the devastating 40-minute video of my beloved wife, the person who meant everything to me, engaged in intimate acts with her supposed work husband, Martin Harris, left me completely devastated. In moments of turmoil, a geek's mind can wander down strange paths. I remembered an old joke about a husband discovering his wife's infidelity and threatening her lover with a gun, saying, "Don't laugh, you're next." However, I vowed to maintain a sense of order amidst the chaos. They would face the consequences of their betrayal, and I would find the strength to walk away before confronting the situation head-on. I knew I needed some time away. Being in the same house as Sandra felt suffocating and unbearable. So I arranged to take the rest of the week off, explaining that I needed to be in Wallops for the weekend if anyone asked. With that settled, I quickly packed a bag, left a note behind, and embarked on a journey towards the west. Fortunately, I had a childhood friend named Lucas, who lived just over an hour past Baltimore, and he kindly offered to host me for the weekend. I let out a sigh of relief, grateful that I wouldn't have to face Sandra at home. In my current state, pretending to be normal was out of the question. I struggled to control my emotions, gather my thoughts, and come up with a plan. Leaving that note was the first time I had ever lied to my wife, and the guilt weighed heavily on me. However, at that moment, escaping was my top priority, and I wasn't ready to reveal my intentions just yet. As I drove westward, I found myself grappling with deep questions about the woman I thought I knew so well. Had she become so skilled at compartmentalizing that she could justify having two husbands? One thing was clear. My wife had mistaken my trust for naivety. I had never been naive, and deceiving a husband who trusted her completely was not a difficult task. The days of blind trust were over. My marriage was in shambles, awaiting its inevitable end. Childhood friends have a way of seeing through facades. They know your past, present, and innermost thoughts. There's no hiding from them. Within minutes of arriving at Lucas's place, he could see the turmoil written all over my face. I shared the devastating news with him, and his reaction mirrored my own anger. However, it was his wife, Tiffany, who urged us to calm our rage and approach the situation with clarity. She didn't defend Sandra. Instead, she encouraged me to reflect on my desires and avoid impulsive actions. A woman's perspective often provides a true understanding of social dynamics at play. While I was furious at my wife and her alleged work husband, Tiffany's focus extended to the broader context of the workplace. In her view, women held the power over sexual dynamics, either by participating actively or turning a blind eye. "Men are pigs, and it's up to women to civilize them," she remarked, sharing a knowing smile with her husband, who reluctantly agreed. "I am determined to bring them all down. I am filing for divorce from my wife, that treacherous, disloyal woman. She has betrayed me, and it is evident that this is not her first transgression. I desire to inflict pain upon each and every one of them. I want to make Mr. Martin Harris regret ever existing with even a hint of decency. And I want every adulterer in that workplace to deeply regret the day they chose to betray their vows." Tiffany tried to inject some reason into my boiling anger. "Make sure you are fully prepared for the consequences. There may be factors at play that you are unaware of. Perhaps she will be consumed by remorse and never repeat her actions. You love this woman enough to marry her. Do you truly want to throw it all away now? Think it through." Reluctantly, I presented the incriminating evidence, and together we watched the footage. Martin Harris, a mere office worker. His expertise lay in the realm of finances. While I dedicated myself to evening runs, he indulged in extravagant dining experiences. Martin Harris was far from formidable. For 40 agonizing minutes, we witnessed my wife surrendering herself to her supposed work partner. It was a soul-crushing experience. She wore a smile, even shared laughter, while I felt as though my world was collapsing around me. As the video came to an end, a heavy silence filled the room. I turned to Tiffany, seeking guidance. "How long should I contemplate this?" I asked, desperate for clarity. She simply shook her head, embraced me in a comforting hug, and silently began preparing dinner. Lucas had pursued a career in law, an irony that was not lost on me. Yet he remained a loyal friend, and for that, I forgave him. His wife, a high school science teacher, possessed a surprisingly analytical mind. Throughout the weekend, we engaged in numerous discussions, and with their invaluable assistance, I began devising a plan. I called Tristan and outlined my intentions. It would come at a price, but with patience, it was achievable. We devised a strategy to divide my wife's workplace into two factions, management and those closely associated with Sandra, about 10 individuals, accompanied by their respective work spouses. My aim was not just to harm them. I desired to completely destroy them. The remaining staff would face the consequences, all without draining my finances. Tristan would discreetly set up cameras in the offices of the management and the targeted colleagues, while the rest would be caught on camera entering and exiting through the lobby. When the time came to file for divorce, I would take legal action against the company, revealing the wrongdoings of each employee's spouse. Throughout that weekend, I agonized over whether I had overlooked the warning signs. There had to be signs, I rationalized. She never seemed distant or uncaring. She was always supportive when I shared details about my job. Could she really live a double life without guilt? Was she possibly a sociopath? Her nervous reaction when I confronted her about the wife comment on that fateful Friday indicated that she was fully aware of right and wrong, or at the very least, conscious of potential consequences. I struggled to understand how anyone could maintain such deceit without breaking down. Somewhere in my thoughts, a troubling idea emerged. By leaving town, I had unknowingly given Sandra and her supposed lover the perfect chance to use our home for their secret meetings. Anger rose within me before I quickly realized the pointlessness of dwelling on it. In the grand scheme of things, their actions were insignificant. I had already decided to divorce her, regardless of her current actions. I made up my mind to leave her the bed out of sheer practicality and take what was rightfully mine from the rest of the house. Stronger than ever, I prepared myself for the upcoming deceit as I began the drive home on Sunday night. To save money, we chose not to record footage of the work spouses in their hotel rooms more than once, except for my wife and Mr. Harris. The number of room rentals was reduced, and Tristan's team saved time as a result of this. In order to prevent Sandra from dismissing her actions as a one-time occurrence, I wanted to eliminate any possibility of that. Our objectives were achieved in just 2 weeks, although those weeks were extremely difficult. I despised every moment of it. Some may question whether one instance was enough for retribution, but my desire for revenge extended beyond just Sandra and Mr. Harris. I aimed to expose the entire office's complicity, including those who knew about my wife's infidelity, but remained silent. Uncovering their deceit took additional time. Most work spouses visit the hotel across the street once a week, with some being more frequent visitors than others. Although we didn't catch all of them, we captured enough to serve our purpose. Sandra and her accomplice had a strict schedule of meeting every Wednesday. To distance myself from the pain, I pretended to work late. However, the ache of being home was unbearable on many evenings. I fabricated emergencies that supposedly required me to travel on Thursdays, but in reality, I spent those nights in a hotel near my workplace. On Friday nights, I sought solace in visiting Lucas and Tiffany once again, and on Monday nights, I returned to the hotel to escape the torment of home. Sandra started complaining about feeling neglected, and our relationship gradually became cold. Little did she know the extent of my deception. Despite her efforts to maintain a facade of normalcy at home, I was emotionally distant, and it showed in her behavior. To seek refuge, I moved to the guest room for sleeping, and made sure to leave the house early each morning. After all, I had my own set of deadlines at work. Perhaps Sandra sensed the strain in our marriage, or maybe she believed my weak excuses, or maybe she simply didn't care. Regardless, it didn't stop her from continuing her Wednesday lunches with her work husband. Their lunch breaks appeared to only get longer. It was clear that infidelity was widespread in her workplace, with a large number of employees, including those in high-ranking positions, engaging in extramarital relationships. It seemed like the corruption started from the top, as the saying goes. Upon further reflection months later, I noticed a glaring omission in the 3 videos I watched. They never mentioned me. Neither of them said anything negative about me or felt the need to defend my honor. What hurt even more was seeing her wear her wedding rings during those encounters, a silent indication of her indifference towards our marriage. It was as if I didn't exist in that part of her life. While there was some tenderness between the two lovers, it felt empty, lacking the true intimacy one would expect in a committed relationship. They were more than just casual partners, but they weren't true lovers either. When I saw my wife and her colleague walk through the lobby, his arm around her waist, heading to their secret meeting, I knew our marriage was beyond repair. Witnessing their intimacy confirmed that there was no room for discussions, excuses, or tired cliches. I was determined to not only end our marriage, but also dismantle her entire workplace. I had no desire to hear her apologies or see her cry, and the idea that it was all about sex was repulsive. 3 infidelity counters would destroy any illusions of her faithfulness. My attorney carefully prepared the legal documents while Tristan took care of the rest. At exactly 10 o'clock on Monday morning, a process server entered the offices of Wilson & Wilson, serving both Sandra and Martin Harris at their desks. With purposeful steps, he went to the CEO's office and served the company itself. It's almost ironic looking back. The CEO, Simon Wilson, was involved in the very infidelity I was trying to expose. He was 67 years old when he married a much younger woman who could be considered a trophy wife. It is still a mystery to me why he sought comfort in the arms of a 45-year-old secretary. My phone kept buzzing at 10:20, but I ignored it without hesitation. Meanwhile, 5 of Tristan's associates began distributing manila envelopes to the legitimate spouses of all the employees at the company. Some contained photographs, while others had videos accompanied by detailed reports that could be used in divorce proceedings. Martin Harris's wife received an especially large envelope. For the rest, a letter served as a wake-up call, informing them about the unpleasant activities happening at Wilson & Wilson should they choose to confront their spouses when they returned home. Each envelope had a short note. In the interest of transparency, we have Sandra Anderson to thank for bringing this to our attention. I couldn't help but wonder how many allies my deceitful wife would have by Tuesday morning. Wilson & Wilson's downfall was swift and significant. After I filed a lawsuit against the company, a flood of 20 additional legal actions followed. Divorces spread throughout the office like a wildfire, even in marriages where there was no evidence of infidelity. The management's attempts to fire employees involved in the scandal only revealed their own involvement in the mess. Innocent individuals quickly left, trying to salvage their damaged reputations. The media jumped on the spectacle, and within 2 weeks, an article about the firm's collapse prominently featured the term work spouses. I couldn't help but wonder who coined that phrase. Perhaps it was some clueless husband who was unaware of the realities of corporate culture. Business declined after the scandal, leading to the closure of the office within 2 months. For almost a year, the once bustling building stood empty and eerie. Eventually, I found myself sitting across from Sandra in my lawyer's office. Tears flowed down her cheeks as she tried to express regret. Following weeks of receiving a series of angry messages interspersed with denials, pleas, and unsuccessful attempts at bribery and negotiation, she finally accepted some responsibility for her actions. She attributed her wrongdoings to the allure and environment of high finance. I found it difficult to understand the connection between her unfaithfulness and the financial industry, but it seemed to be deeply ingrained in the culture. However, her apology was short-lived. In a surprising twist, she tried to shift the blame onto me, claiming that my failure to communicate my concerns had contributed to the situation. Absurd. You shouldn't have to remind your spouse to refrain from having extramarital affairs, let alone developing a so-called work spouse in the first place. Sandra's infidelity remained a puzzling mystery to me, as she never offered a satisfactory explanation. All I could gather was that she had undergone a significant transformation. The once bright-eyed and seemingly honest woman with a passion for business had turned into a deceitful and dishonest individual, seemingly guided by the motto, "What he doesn't know won't hurt me." Tristan informed me that their encounters only took place on Wednesdays during their lunch breaks, and they hadn't taken advantage of the opportunity to meet during my absence from home that weekend. It was as if Sandra adhered to some twisted version of a monogamous marriage where cheating was limited, but not completely eliminated. Tristan tried to justify her actions, suggesting it might be a bizarre form of bonding ritual. Wilson & Wilson promoted a toxic corporate environment where team building was equated with intimate relationships among co-workers. There appeared to be a warped sense of loyalty at play, where employees restricted their extramarital affairs to a single person, often their closest colleague. Tristan pondered that they viewed themselves as intellectually superior, sharing a hidden knowledge or participating in collective risk-taking. Whether it was a shared secret or a twisted social agreement, I found it difficult to understand. Despite my attempts to make sense of the situation, I couldn't shake off my emotional investment in both my marriage to Sandra and the circumstances surrounding our divorce. I was faced with a decision to spend a lifetime grappling with the complexities of these individuals, or to simply walk away. In the end, I chose the latter. My pursuit of revenge did not unfold as I had imagined. While I emerged victorious in my legal battles, the company's finances were depleted, and Martin Harris faced almost complete devastation in his divorce proceedings. The irony was not lost on me. My own actions had led to the financial ruin of both the company and Harris, leaving them unable to meet the legal judgments against them. My wife, who had lost her job, sought alimony after our divorce, but my lawyer successfully argued that her unemployment was a direct result of her infidelity, leading to her being denied any financial support. Even the betrayed spouses, though hurt by their partner's betrayal, held resentment towards me for revealing the unpleasant truth, placing me squarely in their line of blame. It was an unexpected consequence in a vast city where I could exist without their approval. However, one person's reaction took me by surprise. One evening at a bar, Emma Harris approached me, exuding an undeniable charm that caught my attention. She introduced herself and sat beside me, her intentions clear. "I am divorcing my husband, but I want more than just revenge," she stated. "I want to confess to him that I slept with his mistress's husband. Will you help me in this, Mr. Anderson? What do you say, Lester? Will you assist me in defiling and humiliating the man who betrayed your wife?" After some thought, I agreed. Upon reflection, I found that I had no regrets about the decision I made. Initially, Sandra's family directed their anger towards me. However, I chose to address the issue directly by showing them the incriminating video. Witnessing Sandra's betrayal firsthand, they were overwhelmed with emotion, offering apologies and shedding tears. In the end, they absolved me of any blame for the divorce, although they did try to convince me to give Sandra another chance. Despite their efforts, I could not bring myself to forgive her, especially since she never asked for it. My heart remained hardened for more than a year. Looking back on the events surrounding my divorce, I couldn't help but feel a sense of irony. Despite my expertise in high-tech electronics, it was basic methods like a parked car, a bribe to the desk clerk, and off-the-shelf miniature cameras that exposed Sandra's infidelity. It served as a stark reminder that even the most advanced technology cannot prevent betrayal in matters of the heart. Reflecting on how easily I uncovered their deceit, I couldn't shake the thought of how effortlessly they could have hidden their affair. It became clear to me after overhearing a few conversations. From then on, their indiscretions were glaringly obvious. Couples casually crossing the street displayed a boldness that bordered on arrogance, making me wonder if anyone cared about appearances anymore. It seemed almost unbelievable that they had managed to avoid detection for so long, prompting me to question the world I lived in. Were such affairs common in the environment where I operated? Those who bragged about their romantic conquests were usually loners, with their only companion being themselves. Once again, I found myself on the sidelines, observing the actions of the popular crowd from a distance. Occasionally, I would catch a glimpse of Sandra in passing, but we never exchanged words, and I remained unaware of her current activities. When our eyes lock, I catch a glimpse of sadness in hers. However, I find it difficult to maintain eye contact with her. The mere presence of her still pulls at my heartstrings, serving as a reminder of the life I once had that now lies in ruins. I have taken a new direction, embarking on a journey of fresh beginnings. Like a trigger sparking an explosion, I initiated a series of events that not only shattered our bond, but also my own identity. Thank you for watching this video until the end. If you enjoyed it, kindly give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Stay tuned for more content.